back, everyone, to the Valley's most in-depth weather forecast video. We call it Weather for Weather Geeks. Of course, our usual focus is on eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania, but oftentimes we branch out and talk about other topics as well that have a national interest, a climate interest, long-range interests. We cover a lot of it on this video, thanks to all the new viewers who may have found this on YouTube of late. I'm based in Youngstown, Ohio, and I'm the chief meteorologist for the NBC affiliate in Youngstown. Again, we focus kind of on the Youngstown and eastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania area, but a lot of times we talk about some other cool stuff as well. And locally, we picked up, as expected, about 3/4 of an inch worth of rain at the Youngstown Warren Airport in Vienna today. That was generally what the models were advertising, about 3/4 of an inch. Now, some of our local rain gauges, a couple of these values are suspiciously low. We had a little glaze of ice, of course, this morning with the rain falling into air. That was right around 31, 32. A couple of rain gauges might have had that little glaze of ice, and so the water didn't seep down into the gauge properly, and so they're reading a little bit low. But the ones that look okay to me, I think we generally had between 1/2 inch and 3/4 of an inch, with a few higher amounts, especially in northern Trumbull and northern Mercer. We did not, at least as far as I've seen, have too many problems with impactful icing this morning, but a little glaze on some elevated surfaces certainly did occur here and there. All right, dynamic system across the Midwest this evening. Low pressure is near Chicago, cold front down here. Warm front is pushing northward slowly but surely through Ohio and southwestern Pennsylvania as we speak. Now, a lot of the problems, in fact, all of the problems really at this point, are on the north side of this in the colder air. It's heavy snow for some, it's heavy icing for others, and we still have ice storm warnings. Not a product you see very often, but it is in effect for parts of southern Michigan. Winter storm warnings off to the north where it's primarily snow. By the way, real quickly, let me bring up the National Watch Warning Map, and I say that because it's interesting. The National Weather Service office in Los Angeles today had to issue a blizzard warning. Not for Los Angeles or the beaches or anything like that, but the LA office covers a lot of higher terrain. There's a lot of mountainous areas, of course, around the Los Angeles area, and for the first time in at least a couple of decades, they had to issue a blizzard warning for some of their mountainous areas around Los Angeles. That's a big storm system in the west and the Midwest this evening and into tonight. And again, our warm front is slowly but surely pushing northward. Not hard to find it, that's for sure. We're up to 70 in Cincinnati, 66 in Columbus, but locally, we've been in the 30s all day. It's been a crummy day, cold and damp. We're going to briefly visit the 50s for a time tonight before temperatures retreat some later on tonight, and then the bigger jump comes during the daylight hours for tomorrow. All right, they're getting snow off to our north by a few hours, but we're not getting in on it, and we haven't gotten in on much snow. This is going to be the second least snowiest February on record, with just 0.2 at the airport. And for the season, I mean, this is an enormous deficit, 33.5 inches, shy of the average through today's date. We might end up getting into that 40-plus inch range as far as deficit goes before maybe we get a few more chances for snow during March. We'll talk about the longer range in just a moment. But again, this is a pretty healthy amount of snow, the season's biggest for a lot of these locations. The snow ongoing, but from here on out, what to expect. Several inches, Minneapolis, Green Bay, over towards Michigan, Toronto, Syracuse, Albany, and heading over towards parts of New England as well. For us, again, we briefly jump up into the 50s tonight. Kind of a weird temperature curve, if you will, tonight. We reach our highest point for the calendar day, today's calendar day, at 11:59 p.m. That'll be the warmest part of the whole day, February 22nd. But then the 23rd starts with temperatures in the upper 50s, then dropping into the 40s, but then this next warm front pushes in tomorrow morning, and this is when temperatures really blast off by the afternoon. We'll see temperatures getting into the 60s, perhaps flirting with a record. Cold front, so let's rewind this. Cold front comes through dry, it looks like, late tomorrow into tomorrow night. There's not much moisture to be wrung out behind the system, but a stray flurry will be a possibility for Friday morning. And this next wave of low pressure scoots across early Saturday morning. Right now, we don't have any flurries in our forecast. Could one be ruled out at this point? That's a question mark. But either way, no big deal. It's going to turn out to be a pretty decent Saturday and a pretty decent weekend coming up. I showed you this graphic last evening, but in case you missed it, this is going to be an enormous temperature drop that we'll see between 4 or 5 p.m. on Thursday and about 7 or 8 a.m. on Friday. Probably on the order of 40-ish, between 40 and 45 degrees, somewhere in there, depending on just how warm we get tomorrow. We have 68 in the forecast. If temperatures fall just short of that, say 65, then we might not make this list. But still, this list comprises the biggest 15-hour temperature drops on record. The biggest back in 1986, 50 degrees from 81 to 31 from the middle of the afternoon on April 1st to first thing in the morning on April 2nd. Most recently, of course, right before Christmas time, we had a big temperature drop on the order of 44 degrees. All right, even though there's going to be the occasional colder day like we'll have on Friday, this is still going to be the pattern taking us into early March. I do think it's going to change, but probably not at least until the first handful of days of March are behind us. Cold in the west, mild in the east, as a general rule, with an occasional cold shot a possibility. But I do think beyond this, there will be more opportunities for some colder weather as we go into March. Once again, I have text on here that I didn't mean to include, so we'll just ignore that. This is the last 7 days worth of runs of the CFS, the Climate Forecast System long-range model, for the month of March. This map might be a little bit deceptive because you might look at this and say, oh, more of the same, cold in the west, warm in the east. But this is for the entire month of March, and I do think that the numbers could be skewed fairly dramatically by a pretty amplified pattern during the first week of the month. So even though you see us not exactly in the blues around here, I do think that the pattern will favor colder weather by a fair margin, starting sometime close to the start of that second week of March, and perhaps taking us through the balance of the month. Now, it's too early for details beyond that, but I do think that March will have a different flavor than January and February after we get done with the first handful of days. We've got some things going on in the tropics, the tropical Pacific, that will force the pattern to be colder in the east. We've got blocking probably coming to the northern Atlantic, kind of like we had back in December. That will tend to promote more cold air in the east, so things are going to be more favorable for cold as we go deeper into the month of March. There's an old saying, it doesn't always work out this way, but there's an old saying, what happens in December, winter remembers. In other words, what happens in December tends to happen towards the end of winter as well. Again, doesn't always work out that way, but it's a clever little phrase, easy to remember, and it may be the case this year that December and March have a lot of similarities, and January and February do as well. And we've had kind of we might have a winter sandwich, if you will, with some chilly weather in March, especially, or in December, I should say, right before Christmas, followed by the tail end of the cold weather season being colder than the average. We'll see how it plays out. We'll keep updating the forecast, of course, as we get closer to March and meteorological spring. We'll do a review of the winter and an official spring forecast here on Weather for Weather Geeks and on my blog, ericwfmj.com, during the first half of next week. Thanks for watching tonight. I'll see you back here on Thursday.